Hello and welcome to Level Up and Friends, the podcast where those of us from the comic book and video game store Level Up Entertainment get together each week with some friends and talk about a subject that we're passionate about. This week we're going back to the old Star Trek well. We're going to be talking about our top five TNG episodes, and that's top five for each me and my guests. So we're going to have like a kind of a top 15, as it were. I'll say right off the bat, this isn't going to be like a definitive top 15. There's still way more episodes I know we all enjoy and can bring up. So, like I always say, we'll circle back to topics at another point. So this is going to definitely be one I think people are going to be have some opinions on. We'll come back and discuss other episodes in the future. But I'm your host, Scott, and joining me this week, I've got Ellie.
Hello.
And I've got Mike.
Greetings, humans.
Yes. Might know Ellie from our Level Up 13th anniversary retrospective. She used to work with us at the store. But Mike, this is your first time on the podcast, so I'm going to start this part with you.
Okay.
I know from you've been coming into comic book stores I've been working at for a long time. So we've gotten to know each other probably through Star Trek a little bit. Talk us a little bit about how you got into the series, as if you don't mind.
Well, that's interesting because I remember seeing Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope for the first time in theaters with my grandfather when my age was still in single digits. I remember seeing Doctor Who for the first time with Tom Baker and the robot, but I don't have any conscious memory of a time before Star Trek was in my life.
Mhm.
I was born in 1971, so syndication had become a thing by that time, and Star Trek was on between the New York and Philadelphia UHF stations. I'm pretty sure you could find it on at least once every day between the four different channels. And on the weekends, it would be it's just something that was always there. My mother used to watch it when she got married, so she has fond memories of it. She always had it on, and I remember I had the Mego action figures of Kirk and Spock and the Gorn, which was just the lizard from Spider-Man repainted.
Mhm.
And the Snap Tight model kits of the Enterprise, the Klingon cruiser, and the Bird of Prey. It's just something that was always there. I was so by the time when the movies had started coming out, I'm in high school, and I guess I had gotten more heavily back into it as opposed to just being this is just a thing I watched when I was a kid. Okay, now this is starting to get some new stuff and this is getting interesting. So when Next Generation started, what was it? I guess my sophomore year in high school.
Mhm.
It's like this became something to get heavily back into, as opposed to just sort of like it's on in syndicate. Here's like the old '60s series on in syndication. If I'm flipping channels, well, I guess I'll stop here then. As
Yeah.
opposed to became more of a okay, now I actually want to follow this from week to week.
Yeah, I also don't remember a time when Star Trek there was at least some minor influence in my life because one of the earliest things I had when I was a kid was like a kid's play desk,
Mhm.
and I had a bumper sticker on it, which I didn't put there, but someone did, that said "Beam me up, Scotty." I think because Scotty and Scott.
Right.
So because of that, it's always kind of been in my life. But like, yeah, the original series was always in syndication. When I was a kid, TNG and Deep Space Nine and stuff were new.
Mhm.
Um, well, like they were still on, regularly as a kid. But I didn't start getting into Star Trek until I was an adult. It was actually once Netflix, when it was still before it was streaming, it was still just DVDs. They got all of Star Trek on there. I was like, I'm going to make an effort to watch all of this, and then waiting a week between discs of
Yeah.
EOS season one, I was like, man, this show is boring.
Mhm.
But I eventually pushed through and I fell in love with it. But Ellie, you're the most recent into this
Yes.
franchise of the three of us. In
Yes.
fact, when we used to work together, you weren't into it at all. So this is a totally new
Exactly.
experience talking to
Yeah.
you about this series. Please tell
Yeah.
me, how did you get into it?
Well, I remember like a kid, and I was born in '92, and I remember watching like Hercules Xena and like Star Trek would be on a lot. And my brother was really into sci-fi, so we would go to the video store and get sci-fi movies. And I remember watching Nemesis,
Mhm.
which is not the best, but it's so fun to watch. Um, and when Netflix came out with the full series, well, I guess it's always been there, but I never really took a dive. But I decided to do it, and I have never looked back.
Mhm.
I've always been a big sci-fi fan, but I remember Greg and you being like, "You gotta watch it." um, and I know I talked to you before, but like I'm a huge, huge fan of Deep Space Nine. But
Mhm.
of course, I didn't get there without watching Next Gen first. So yeah, the past couple years, I've just been like a huge fanatic. I tell people to watch it. I watch it all the time. Like some people leave like The Office or Parks and Rec on. I have Star Trek on.
No, it's just as good. I also do Office and Parks and Rec as just being on, so it's
Yeah.
all quality material here.
Yeah.
But with that, you guys want to jump into this? I'll
Yeah.
say up front for the listeners and watchers at home, we decided not to put them in some sort of numerical listing because you like different episodes for different reasons. How do you compare certain ones? So we're going to go down them in broadcast order, and then each of us picked our 5 favorites we wanted to talk about. So each one of us will introduce them as we go. And with the earliest episode we picked is Mike picked out. So Mike, why don't you take us away here?
Okay, we're going to start off with Q Who from season 2. This is the first appearance of the Borg, and I'm going to make the possibly controversial statement that I don't think the Borg are ever scarier than they are in this. I mean, yes, they're best of both worlds. They're pretty menacing, but the whole point of like, well, we can find a way to stop them, kind of undercuts that invincibility finally at the end. And it's sort of like in this, they're just a force of nature. They just don't care enough to talk to you. I mean, they don't even get to say the trademark "you will be assimilated." It's just we've analyzed your defenses. You can't stop us. Try and you'll be punished. And just they don't say another word to our crew for the rest of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you in that. I always say the Borg has diminishing returns,
Yes.
and they're kind of like the xenomorphs from Aliens. They're really scary when you don't understand how they work because they're so alien and foreign to how we think and operate. But the more you get to know them, it's like, all right, I get it now, and like it just takes all the teeth out of it.
Hmm.
And also
Especially
this is a Q episode, so I also like it.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this one is how much is being set up in it. And what's equally interesting is how much, or in some cases, how little, is picked up on later. First, obviously, the Borg are set up, and they had been setting them up since the neutral zone, because, pardon, they mentioned they have the one line about, oh, this planet where we've been flung halfway across the galaxy to has big patches where the cities were just ripped out of the surface, like those colonies along the neutral zone that we were wondering about the end of last season.
Mm-hmm.
So the Borg are definitely set up. They introduce a new character here, Ensign Sonia Gomez, played by Licia Naff, who was probably better known, and sadly will probably always be best known as the mutant prostitute with 3 breasts in Total Recall.
There's worse things to be known for.
Yeah.
I'd rather be known as that than the
It's
guy who
like
spilled coffee on Picard.
Yeah. And it's interesting that she was being set up to be a recurring character. There's even it's even said that she was set up to be like a romantic interest for Geordi, which seems kind of weird to me. That it's like, oh yeah, new girl, just fresh out of the academy. Yeah, let me put the moves on you.
Yeah.
No.
Jordy in general, his behavior with like women has just been really weird.
It has not aged super well. It was a different time. I go back to watch the
Yeah.
original series. It's extremely sexist.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things like, yeah, that's the power dynamics in play there. I mean, we can get into obviously it never became a thing because she kind of morphed into Barclay, where you have kind of more bumbling lower crewmen.
I like it's an interesting character dynamic to set up. The idea that she's just like this enthusiastic, starry-eyed idealist, wants to change the universe, but just can't stop from tripping over her own shadow.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fun. They just never really did anything with it. And I was kind of reading that the actress herself has said that if they were setting Geordi, her and Geordi to be a couple, it's like nobody told either of them anything about it while they were filming it.
Yeah.
One of the other interesting things it sets up, though just before I'm moving on from Gomez, even though she doesn't appear in any other episodes except this one and the following one, Samaritan Snare, she's what I like to call an "Are you going to eat that?" character. It's like when you're at a big meal at, like, say, at Thanksgiving, and you finished all your mashed potatoes because that's your favorite, and you see your cousin next to you just hasn't touched theirs, and you look at him and say, are you going to eat that? Because if you don't want it, I will. Sonia Gomez, has shown, like, the people who write the spin-off books and the comics and the games. She's like a recurring, like, second in command of the Starship in the Starfleet Corps of Engineers novel series that just goes on for books and books and books. And she's apparently the head of Starfleet engineering by the time they get to the 25th century in the Star Trek Online game. And I'll be getting this idea of, are you going to eat that characters later on? But moving on from that, one of the other things this episode sets up that I'm really sad doesn't get picked up on is Q and Guinan. It suggests that they have some kind of history, and they're because especially when at the beginning of the episode, when we first see her, she's just standing in tense forward, I'm sensing a great disturbance in the force, and then when Q finally shows up, it's like she pops up from behind the bar doing the Steve Ditko fingers like Doctor Strange, ready to whip out the crimson bands of Sidorak on him.
Mm-hmm.
It implies that she, before they had just firmly established that no, she's just an alien refugee who happened to be in the Matrix, or the Nexus rather, and that's why she has visions of the future. Before, they were implying that no, she might be some kind of weird, crazy, powerful cosmic entity like Q, and I'm kind of sad that they never developed that. Went in on that further.
Yeah, it's real. That scene is really weird with the hindsight of having, like, watched the rest of where the characters wind up going. Is it definitely set up, like, because they were obviously bringing back Q. This is, I think, his third episode.
Third, yeah.
Yeah, so they were obviously making him to be a recurring character, and I guess they're trying to set up some sort of rivalry, maybe. I don't know. It's just
the closest they come to it is like the next time Q shows up, where he's not only been cast out of by the other Q, they've stripped him of his powers too and made him mortal. I think Guinan, jabs him with a fork to make sure that he is in fact flesh and blood, and says, "Well, okay, I'm satisfied." Yeah, he's not faking. But that's as far as it goes.
But yeah, no, that's this very quality pick. One of my potential alternates for my top 5 here. So I'm glad you picked Q-Who.
And one last little bit regarding Q himself. When we first see him, he's finger snap Picard off the away from the Enterprise onto this little shuttle in the middle of nowhere, and Picard says to him, "Now you promised, you agreed after our last encounter that you wouldn't bother my ship anymore." And he's like, "I'm not bothering your ship. Your ship's nowhere near here. We're out here in the middle of nowhere on a shuttlecraft, not your ship." And I'm like, as a dungeon master, that is some next level. That is some quality rules lawyering right there.
Yeah.
With filming of that episode, I don't know why, but the part with the baby always is just so creepy to me, with having like how they really, like, it was a real baby.
Oh yeah, put all the prosthetics on it. Yeah.
Wiki implants on
it.
Yeah.
It was adorable, and if I ever had a child, I feel like that'd be a great Halloween costume.
I'm sure you can go on Etsy and people make like little knit, like, things you can put over their face and stuff.
Yeah.
But with that, Ellie, you want to take us off? The next one is yours.
Yes. Okay. Who Watches the Watchers is such a good episode, like, philosophically. So basically, the Federation, like this, like, anthropological team is like watching over this, like, civilization on, Montauk 3? Mintaka, thank you. And and they're like a Vulcan. What's that?
Mintaka is one of the stars in Orion's belt, so it's a real star that we can actually point to in the sky and say, "There, that's where this is happening."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And basically there's like an explosion in like their little holographic lab that's hidden, so that it becomes exposed, and the Enterprise answers in time and then goes to save them, but unfortunately one of the civilians sees them, and then it goes on from there. So I really like, basically this is the episode where Picard becomes their god. It's basically what it is. So they're exposed for their technology, and they think, of course, it's like, they're living in mud.
I guess while we're waiting for her to return, I will point out that this episode also has like the second appearance of what is the real Picard maneuver, i.e.
Oh, the shirt tuck.
No. The real Picard maneuver of taking a woman from a pre-warp civilization, bringing them up to the Enterprise, and showing them their planet out one of the big windows.
Oh yeah, it's like his Batman telling him their secret identity move.
Yeah, it's like, in the immortal words of Professor Doofenshmirtz, if I had a nickel for every time that happened, it's well, I'd only have about like 25 cents, but it's weird that happens more than once.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry, I guess you must have switch over your phone.
Yeah, I'm just gonna use my phone. But you guys can continue what you're talking about, and I'll fill in later.
I think you were still describing the episode, right?
Yeah, I mean, the story of the Overseers, I think I just loved how conflicted Picard was in this episode, and how like there was like a line he had about like sabotaging their like had not asked their beliefs of like a god, and I just loved how like Picard was so like mindful of his impact, and how uncomfortable he was.
Which in wonderful contrast to the one professor who's basically telling him the Winston Zedmore doctrine. If someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna say don't worry about video. I think that might be draining too much of your internet.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Well,
audio only is fine.
Okay.
All right. So again, I'll edit this little bit out where I'm explaining technical stuff. But yeah, we can go on that. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember this one as much. I think I might be thinking the episode where Riker goes undercover as an alien in a pre-warp civilization.
That's the episode right after, actually.
That one's called First Contact.
First Contact. Yeah.
Not to be confused with the movie First Contact.
Which is also another one where Picard takes a woman from a pre-warp civilization and takes her up onto the Enterprise and shows her planet through one of the big windows.
Except that time it's also our planet.
Yeah. Well, it happens in the First Contact episode where Riker's, got the rubber mittens on.
Yeah, and Lilith from Frasier wants to have sex with him for no reason.
That was the most ridiculous scene.
Yeah, but we're getting off topic again. So yeah.
Again, it's weird that happens so much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Mike, I know you picked the next episode. And I know Ellie also wanted to pick it. So if you want to introduce us to it, we can talk about this one.
Okay, let me make sure I'm on the right one here. Up next is The Defector from season 3.
Yeah.
And this one is basically the Cuban Missile Crisis with Romulans. It's the one where a Romulan, the Enterprise picks up a Romulan scout ship, running at top speed out of the neutral zone. Romulan warbird behind it, shooting at it. There's a defector claims to be a low-level file clerk. He says, "Look, I've got information. I need to get to Picard. They have a base on this planet right on the edge of the neutral zone. It's hidden. They're ready to launch a fleet that will attack like 20 different planets in Federation space. They're ready to start another war, and I need you to come there and help me. Destroy the base to help me stop it." And they spend a lot of this episode with a lot of like that very tension building Cold War-ish kind of like, well, is he telling the truth? Is he lying? Is he a spy? He doesn't really, well, the low level file clerk, Sub-Lieutenant Sital is insisting. It's like, no, I don't want to tell you, about these troop movements over there. You don't need to know that. You just need to know the base is here, and you need to come destroy it. Just trust me to do this. And it's interesting, again, it's interesting because this kind of ties back to the first appearance of the Romulans in Balance of Terror back in the original series in the 60s. Now, both the Klingons and the Romulans have always been stand-ins for the communist bloc in the Cold War, but where the Klingons have always been the conquerors and the invaders and the oppressors, and were generally just kind of fungible, interchangeable warmongers. The Romulans were more of like the plotters and the schemers and the espionage experts. And the interesting thing about that is because even from their very first appearance, it's not that they were like this monolithic race of bad evil people like the Klingons were. It's like going in for like a more sympathetic view of the Soviet bloc, where it's like these are sometimes good people. They're just trapped in a really bad and oppressive system. Because it's like in Balance of Terror, you've got the young lieutenant on the Romulan bird of prey, who's just like, he's clearly been drinking the Empire's propaganda, and he's just like, let's go in with guns blazing. The captain's weak for not wanting to destroy the Enterprise. Just blow him out. And the first officer's like, well, look, he's a grizzled old veteran. He just knows how this is done. That's just the way it is. Keep your head down, and you won't cause trouble for yourself or your family back home. And the captain is like, look, there's what my orders say to do and what my conscience says to do, and the difference between them is really bothering him.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing is happening here with Sub-Lieutenant Sial, who, spoilers, is in fact one of the Romulan High Command, Admiral Jarok, who he's trying to stop a war because he knows the Empire won't be able to survive it. We're not ready. They're not ready for another one, no matter how much their propaganda wants them to believe they are. And he wants to prevent this because he believes he's doing the right thing. But at the same time, he doesn't want to give any information that he doesn't have to Picard and company, because he doesn't want to give them a military advantage. He still wants to see himself as being loyal to his people, even though he's crossed the border, but is asking the Federation for help in destroying one of their bases. And so it's interesting. A lot of the things I think you'll find when he's trying to not want to reveal any military secrets, it's like he's doing it more to convince himself that he's not a traitor, more than he is trying to convince Picard and crew that they can trust him. Because he has this wonderful, wonderful speech. I think it's like one of the top speeches in Star Trek, where he says why he's doing this. He says, there comes a time in a man's life when he looks into the first smile of his baby girl and knows he must change the world for her. She's why I'm here, to save the Empire. My daughter, I'll never see my daughter smile again. She'll grow up believing her father was a traitor, but she will grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why the end was so sad.
Yeah.
I did it for nothing. My home, my family for nothing. Yeah.
We're just realizing, oh no, this was all a big loyalty test, and I blew it. It's like he passed the morality test, but blew the loyalty test. And
I loved his moments with Data. Those were nice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love some of the language he uses there. I love it says, these are not my stars. Even the heavens are denied me here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they spend is this the first sympathetic Romulan portrayal we get in series?
In Next Generation, I think so.
Okay.
I know we had, like I was just saying, back in Balance of Terror when they first came in, there were some sympathetic Romulans. But I think this time,
But like in TNG, they kind of came back as like, we're bad guys again, and be on the lookout. So this is kind of showing a little bit more nuance. And I guess that's more what TNG's bag is, since we get Worf as the friendly Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that they're not all just a homogenous group. No, the Defector's a really good one.
I also love, this is like probably the best episode with the late Andreas Katsoulis as Commander Tomalak.
Oh yeah.
He's another "Are you going to eat that?" character.
Yeah.
He's been in like 10 novels and 5 comic storylines, and some of them are even involved like young Tomalak from 100 years ago meeting Kirk and Spock. It's like that's how popular the character is, that even if Andreas Katsoulis couldn't make it back for more, it's like the fans said, like, oh yeah, we like this guy. Because I especially get the impression of this, that he's the Romulan Empire's equivalent of Picard. He's their number one captain, and you can tell in this one that he has been itching to throw down with Picard since they last met in The Enemy a few episodes previous. And right when he says, when his 2 warbirds decloak, and he's like, "Yeah, you're going to surrender, and you're going to hand the defector back over to us, and we're going to gut your ship, and put its its wreck in the middle of the town square of Romulus, Romulus's capital city, as an example of how great we are." He's looking forward to this. It's like, I am finally getting what I want. And then Picard says, "Well, you wanted more than idle fret," and then the 3 Klingons decloak, and just the look on his face that, like, I am so not getting what I want today. But there's one thing, and I'll come back to it later. Right before he decloaks and he recloaks and turns and retreats, you can tell he's just looked at this development of, yeah, the Klingons showed up to bail them out. He's thinking about that, and we'll get back to that later.
Yeah. So happens when you make enemies with everybody. With that one, let's move on to one that I think we all wanted to bring up, but Ellie, you got the honor for it. If you want to tell us a little bit about yesterday's Enterprise.
Oh man, yesterday's Enterprise. The one where they basically experience an alternate life. Or is it like a mirrored universe?
It's kind of like a Back to the Future 2, like splitting of reality. And the only person who's like sensitive that anything happened is Guinan, because she's got ill-defined psychic space powers.
Again, like they were setting up in Q Who, where she's sensing a disturbance in the Force that Q's around.
Yeah. And I feel like this one was the one where I really felt like I actually liked Tasha Yar. Just because, I don't know, I just didn't really connect with her earlier on, and then she died. So getting to see her, like, I don't know,
kind
in
of
that
get
position,
redeemed a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, since it looks like we all picked that one.
Yeah. I love it because it's the Enterprise C is the first time we get to see that.
Right.
Accidentally flung to the future, which is our present day. So, but because they weren't around for to finish the climactic battle they got lost in, reality changed and we're at war with the Klingons. Like the Federation's like really militarized and they're losing. So Yar's still, on the bridge. It's not Worf, because, Worf, who knows what happened to him.
Probably captain of one of the Klingon birds of prey that's attacking them.
I mean, for all we know, he died in Khitomer. Like, nobody came and rescued him.
Oh wow.
But that's not the point. The point is like not what happened to Worf. It's just seeing these characters in a situation we don't normally do, and the shock reveal of this character that died 2 seasons ago is just back.
Right.
So I don't know. I also love the moral dilemma of they have to go back in time knowing that it's literally a suicide mission to fight this battle with the Romulans, because that shows the Klingons that the Federation have the guts to fight them. Because I think that Enterprise was like coming to the aid of the Klingons or something, and that's what helps solidify their future alliance.
The fact that they died defending Klingons from the Romulan attack was sort of like you guys have honor after all.
Exactly. And that's started more of the bro part of their bromance there. But yeah, it's just Tasha decides to go with him. She's like, I'm not even supposed to be alive. This gives me a chance to die with doing something important.
Exactly.
Instead of just randomly dying from a bad special effect. Because my actress wanted to do something else.
It's like part of the official reason that they gave. She wanted time off to go do, I think it was Pet Cemetery. I think she was the movie she was going to be filming, and they just decided, well, wow, wouldn't it be just such a great, shock value moment to just have one of the regular cast that you've, presumably grown to know and like throughout the course of the season, just die totally out of left field unexpectedly, and just that would like up the stakes, that to show that no one is safe, nobody has plot immunity.
It is a move that I generally like. Just this first season of TNG is
The only time
kind of terrible.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a chance, I feel like, to really like Tasha Yar
Yeah.
Right.
enough before then. And they never did it again, so it's like whatever.
Yeah.
It's not The Walking Dead,
No. And from what I understand, the unofficial reason, rumor has it that part of the reason that the production staff decided to kill her off rather than just write her off, oh well, she's going to transfer to another ship and she could come back later, was that one of the reasons Denise Crosby was eager to leave, and this is just a rumor, that the certain members of the production staff were pretty grabby handsy with the lady members of the cast, and she was having none of it. And so they said, well, fine, we'll kill your character.
Yeah, I've heard lots of bad stuff was probably going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate on it too much because none of us were there, but yeah, regardless, I think this is more dignified send off for the character in general. And it's also a really good episode, rather that Skin of Evil was just like whatever, like an episode.
Not to drag completely off topic, but isn't that why the actress who played Dax also left the show?
A little bit. She was also signing the deal to do Becker at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, I have heard that Rick Berman, being kind of a misogynistic jerk, said, "Well, fine, we'll kill her."
Yeah. What was it with Rick's? That one was one where like I didn't see coming, and I felt a lot. But I also had like 6 seasons to get to know this character, and she was great.
Yeah.
Not to say that Tasha Yar couldn't have been great as well, but we didn't get a chance. We don't live in that alternate reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on to the next one here. It's one of yours, Mike.
Okay. Let me check the list here. Where are we? Sins of the Father. Okay. This one is just, it is the definitive Klingon episode that sets up so much mythology for the Klingon Empire, how it works, and the way it behaves and how it interacts with the rest of the galaxy, that it has consequences that will be affecting Trek until pretty much the end of that continuous 18-year run from first episode of Next Generation to last episode of Enterprise. I mean, it has effects in the first of the Next Generation movies. They even go back, again, even the whole House of Duras is they bring them back in Enterprise to show that even 200 years ago they were up to shady garbage. This one does a lot of cool stuff in that the whole idea, for like 3 years now, we've been seeing the Klingon Empire through Worf's eyes. And because it's something that he saw as taken from him as a young age, that he's got to prove himself worthy of regaining, he has this very idealistic view of it. Kind of like, I want to say there's the old saying that converts make the best Christians almost, but the idea that he's only known this from the books, from what the books tell him it's supposed to be, rather than having lived through it firsthand in living memory. He's like, no, we believe in honor and glory, and it's glorious, and it's good, and it's virtuous. And he gets there, and it's like, wow, these are the scummiest, untrustworthiest, backstabbingest jerks ever. Where you get you start to get the idea that honor is just one of those words that they use to justify whatever they want to get away with at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
More literal translation is not about character and virtue, and it's more about, I get what I want and none of you have to die. And the whole idea, for those who aren't familiar with it, the idea that there's a new Klingon exchange officer, sort of like as Riker had done previous season, becoming the exchange first officer on a Klingon bird of prey. There's this new Commander Kurn shows up, and he's kind of a real hard ass, writing everybody except Worf. He's kind of condescending and patronizing to him, and Worf basically says, "What is the deal?" And Kurn has to reveal to him, "Look, I had to make sure you were up to this because I'm your brother. Our dad's been framed for treason, and you need to come back to the Empire to challenge this ruling." And there's just so much good stuff there. Like when he asks Picard, "Look, I'm going to need some time off to do this," and Picard says, "No, you can't have time off. I'm going there with you. You're one of my officers. If they're accusing you of treason, that reflects on this ship, it reflects on the Federation, and it reflects on me. So I'm going to be right there beside you." Which is like a good, a nice moment to show how much respect Worf really has in Picard's eyes. And some good moments with I love little subtle things, like at the end when Worf agrees, "All right, in order for the Empire not to have to break down in civil war and utterly destroy the alliance with the Federation, I'm going to accept discommendation," which means basically you all stand in a circle, tell me I'm a coward that has no honor and I'm not welcome in the Empire anymore, and I'll live with that. And we don't have to reveal that, it's Duras's father. And speaking of that, it's like they're trying to frame Moog's father for this, or Worf's father, Moog, for this. It's like, okay, so Duras's father was the spy who handed over the codes to the Romulans for the defense grid to let them attack Khitomer. And I'm like, I can't help but picture the fact that he died too. It's like, as soon as he sent it over, that he's like, "Okay, where's my reward? Oh, you'll be getting it very shortly." And about boom, yes, by about now. Which again, now this is where what I was talking about before, where Tomalak looks at the Klingons decloaking and says, gotta think about this. The whole reason the Klingons know that there was a traitor at Khitomer, not necessarily who, was because they found and captured a Romulan ship that just happened to have logs detailing what went down at Khitomer 20 years previous. Just a coincidence. And it's like, it's funny that they'd get this information immediately after the Romulans start to think, maybe it would be better for us if the Federation and the Klingons fight and they weaken each other before we try and start a war again.
Yeah. This is, I would say probably, I just don't know if I want to plant my flag too hard and say this is the quintessential Worf episode, but I think it's definitely his top one in Next Gen. He's got some really good stuff in Deep Space Nine.
It's definitely it's like they've had some stuff where they did Heart of Glory, where they show him, dealing with Klingon renegades who themselves aren't behaving the way the Empire is supposed to do, and how he's conflicted by, I understand them, but I can't, my duty forbids me from being like them. Mm-hmm. And we see it again in The Emissary, where we first meet Kalar. And they established that, they were an item, but again, his duty kind of stopped him from pursuing what he wanted. And again, we're dealing with Klingons who are renegades who need to be stopped. And there's a way we can resolve this with.
Oh gosh, sorry about that.
It's okay. But this is the first one where it's like, this is a full-on meta plot that's going to be running for quite some time. And there's and we're always going to, every new episode that involves it is going to be building off of this.
Yeah, it's very much like a lodestone for basically, like you said, for basically all the Klingon plots from here on out, because this also sets in motion like all of the stuff with Galron even, which affects the entire thing, from the rest. As far as Trek got into its own timeline, because everything we've done started going back since then. But so Sins of the Father is.
It's also the first time where we start to get like the long form sequential arcs, because before, you'll notice everything was pretty self-contained, because the word had come down from the suits at the studio that Well, this is syndication. If people watch it and feel like they've missed too much, they won't watch it and the ratings will go down. So we just want to be able every episode to be one and done. That you see it, you can watch it. You don't need to have seen all previous 30 episodes to understand what's going on here. You can just dive in and out at any time. And this is the first time we're like, no, we want to set things that will pay off later off down the road, that will reward people who are watching faithfully. And this is actually one of the first times, maybe one of the first times in just American television drama in general where that starts to happen.
Oh yeah, my knowledge is most limited to Star Trek, so I'm not sure where the rest of like society kind of was when TV watching terms then. But no, this is definitely a turning point for the franchise here in general. Although I guess you can say like Wrath of Khan
Like,
kind of pulls up
so
on another
operas, but then they are quite specifically so. Yeah.
But all right, well, we're gonna move on. It's gonna be my first episode. Exciting. We're doing Captain's Holiday from season 3. The reason I like this one is simple. Picard is forced to finally take some shore leave. And he's very reluctant. He just wants to take a nap and read a book, but like he keeps getting pulled into this adventure. And it's like, I just love the reluctant nature of it. It's just like, oh my God, just leave me alone. Because then Vash and this Ferengi keep trying to like pull him in on this treasure hunt. And like everyone's trying to get him laid, and he's just like, leave me alone. I'm here begrudgingly. I'm gonna just read a book. That's all I want.
I love Bosch actually. I loved this episode. Getting like a female character who's like devious and just kind of I don't know, also like seductive to Picard, which like usually he wouldn't give into that. But he was on Rises, so
Yeah.
That was actually, I believe, at the request of Patrick Stewart himself, who told Ira Stephen Bear when he was the new writer on this. That's Ira Stephen Bear or Robert Hewitt Wolf. I know it's 3 names and a large mammal. But I know who went to work on DS9. But I remember, but probably both, because from what I understand, Patrick Stewart said this to all the new writers, that Picard needs to be involved in more shooting and screwing, some more fighting and fornicating. He wants to do more than just stand on the bridge looking stern and making profound speeches. He's I want to do some actiony stuff.
that's so funny because I know Patrick Stewart, from what I was reading, like they all thought the show wasn't gonna last, so he wouldn't even like. There was like a rumor that he wouldn't even unpack his bags until like 6 months in.
Yeah.
But also like his theatrical nature in general, with all the Shakespeare and Data scenes and like all of the theatrics. I get it.
I'm gonna make this a bold statement. I think that's the wrong thing to start pushing Picard into, because every time they try to do traditional action, it stinks. But I do like this episode. Again, it's the reluctant nature that makes me like it. I like a good curmudgeon. But it's a good fun episode. Much lower stakes than some of the other ones we've talked about. Where it's like I gotta save the future of this timeline. Where it's just like,
even though there are 2 aliens from the future who want him, to find the thing that will allow them to take over.
Yeah, lots of MacGuffins, but just in general, like, it just at least feels a lot lower stakes.
And the Ferengi, anything with Ferengis, I think is hilarious. So
I hate them in TNG so much.
I like Sovak here, mostly because he's played by Max Kredenchik, who goes on to be Rom on DS9. I think he's even wearing the same dental prosthetic with that one crooked tooth that comes
tooth he's got. Yeah,
angle.
I wouldn't be surprised. Rom is one of the redeeming factors for their entire species for me. Yeah, I did.
We will get to them on our top 5 DS9 episodes.
I can't pick 5. That's why I did TNG.
Well, that's why you have guest cast on there who will pick 5 for you that you don't have to pick.
Yeah, I might have to do that and trust some people. But I'm trying to space out the Star Trek episodes. I'm trying to do one every other month. Otherwise, it's just a Star Trek podcast. If I talked about it as much as I want to.
But I was also going to say, I love Max Kredenchik as Sovak in this because, interesting fact, he's the only Ferengi in all of Star Trek that says human instead of human. Partially because he's trying to do, Peter Lorre from the Maltese Falcon and the Ferengi voice at the same time, and you can't.
They're too incompatible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's very clearly Peter Lorre. Yes. Oh, why did you do that? And it's like and he's what you call it? Again, this is also because that writer, I'm pretty sure it's Ira Stephen Bear, is like a big old movie buff, so he put as many references to old movies as he could in this. So it's like, yes, Sovak is Peter Lorre, and there's a relationship between Picard and Vosh is kind of Spencer and Tracy, and and the whole MacGuffin thing. It's like for years I've called this one Indiana Picard and the Maltese phallic symbol.
Yeah, that's a good title for it.
I love it.
All right, so moving on. This is where I think in most other people's top fives, we would talk about the best of both worlds. But for my next pick is actually the episode right after that called Family, which picks up after the events of Best of Both Worlds, where Picard's he was assimilated and under his command committed this horrible atrocity against the Federation and caused, I don't know if, I'm sure they said how many people died, but it's like a really huge number.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, tens of thousands. Including Sisko's wife, which sets off that whole show. But he's kind of trying to grapple with that. And so he's reconnecting with his family back on Earth, and he doesn't get along with his brother, and he's got like a nephew and stuff. But like towards the end, they just start physically fighting and he breaks down. And I think it's Patrick Stewart's best acting on the show.
Yeah.
Which is probably a bold statement. Well, not probably nothing. It definitely is a bold statement.
I agree.
Episodes. But it's just the one that resonated with me the most because it's like, yeah, I think in most other shows, like at this time, like they would not deal with like the human part of that.
Yeah.
And to deal with it. And then it's got a really fun B plot where like we get to meet Morph's human parents.
Yes.
They get to show up and like learn about him. And then fun touch. I think they're Russian. I think that's cute because like we mentioned before, the Klingons were kind of stand-ins for the Russians back in the 60s. But I like it a lot. It's just one of those things like that to me makes the events of Best of Both Worlds so much more effective.
And also you bring this up that seeing the emotional fallout from these really traumatic events. This is one of the very rare times in Star Trek where it happens at all. We've seen lots of crazy stuff happen to our cast. I mean, like they get split in two by transporter accidents. They get, they have to meet their parallel timeline counterparts who are evil. They, all kinds of weird, bizarre things happen to them that would be just intensely traumatic to, a normal 20th century human being. And next episode, they're just, ooh, let's get back on that gaseous nebula survey. Which again is a function of we want this to be episodic. We don't want people to come and saying, wait, what's he so broken up about? Oh, I missed that one. Well, screw it. I won't watch this one then.
Yeah, I think that serialized storytelling, especially in something like this, is a big boon. A big part of why I like Deep Space Nine so much. Yeah. And I think even Enterprise benefits from that. I mean, we'll save discussions for other Star Trek shows for a different one. But it's just this is one of the few times in TNG, especially at this point, where like they really follow up on things that have been set up already. And you get like learning about Worf's human history and growing up and with his in the Federation. Like they play up more stuff with this. I believe his parents show back up again in later episodes.
Once or twice.
Yeah, once or twice. I'd be hard pressed to remember what they are. I know you meet his adopted, like his human brother at one point.
And I know they're mentioned then. I don't think they actually show up. And I know they show up again when spoilers, Worf's son Alexander, who has been living with them, comes to stay with him on the Enterprise permanently because they're just, it's like, we're getting old. We can't keep up with with a Klingon, in his growth, in his kindergarten age growth spurt, running wild.
Oh my god! In my D&D game, my character just had triplets with another player, and I can't keep up with them, and they're pretend. Um, so I can only imagine what a Klingon boy is like. Wait,
Yeah, that's how you know your DM is doing it right.
I'll make sure they know you said that. But yeah, it's just a great emotional episode. I really like strong character stuff, and it's just there's no adventure. That's all it is exploring your characters and what they just went through.
Yeah.
And I find that intensely fascinating. Not that I don't like adventures, but
I think it was nice to have a wholesome episode after what had happened.
because that was traumatic for the viewers too. Because you know,
Yeah.
the season cliffhanger where, oh no, they're gonna kill Picard, like, and then like the whole
We
like
know,
Earth gets invaded and stuff. Like, oh my gosh.
like,
Yeah.
literally everything we've established about these guys that are coming is that you can't stop them. You can't negotiate with them. You can't defeat them. You can't destroy them. They have no remorse, no pity, and they absolutely will not stop.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Kyle Reese.
and the other, there's like existentially terrifying too, where like
Yeah.
your individuality is nothing. You're meant like you mean nothing to them. You're just
raw material to be consumed.
yeah. Oh, it's so that's what makes the Borg so great. And then
Yeah.
this is where that's where it peaks. And then not that I hate everything with the Borg after that, but they're never nearly as interesting again.
It's like, if I can sidetrack into Doctor Who for a moment, it's like the Weeping Angels.
Yes.
Blink was awesome and scary because you didn't understand these things. What were they? How do they work? And then once they figure out a way to stop them, well, you can't really bring them back, because then you got to ask, well, why didn't you just do the same thing you did to stop them last time? And you've got to keep changing the rules to oh, well, they do this now. Well,
Yeah.
well, it's stop them this way instead of the same way we did last time.
And I guess in the Weeping Angels, a lot like the Borg, were like instantly iconic.
Yeah.
And definitely defined that era for this franchise in a way that not even their main characters did.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things, like you can't not bring them back. It's too much. It's too much easy ratings, you know. Like I remember it again. We're off on the tangent, Doctor Who, but like I don't remember what series it was, but like the promo poster for it was like the Statue of Liberty was a weeping angel.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? So,
Angels Take Manhattan. Yes.
Yeah, that was a weak sauce episode. Why would they even do that? It's the most viewed thing ever. Anyway, I don't want to get into Doctor Who right now. But yeah, so that's, I don't know. I really like Family. It's definitely probably one of the least fun ones we're bringing up. But I think Worf and his family go a long way to like lighten the mood, because otherwise it's very heavy.
It's fun when the Rozhenkos are around, but
yeah.
Specifications back home.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next episode, which is one of yours, Mike.
The Wounded.
This is on my list too. I'm so happy you picked it.
Mm-hmm.
The Wounded. This is the first appearance of the Cardassians. It's the first time we really get to see O'Brien do stuff, in a other than just stand at the console and say energizing, and we get to do it he gets to do it in a big way. And in a way, this is kind of setting up a lot of stuff for Deep Space Nine. Should we be taking a shot? I don't know.
No, that's a different show.
I know. Yeah.
We've already talked about Deep Space Nine like every other episode we talked about.
But the interesting, one of the fun things about this is it's got a couple of a great line I like, where we talk about O'Brien's experiences during the war, about how he was protecting some women and children who were trying they were trying to evacuate, and two Cardassian soldiers attacked, and somebody just threw him a gun and he fired and just incinerated the Cardassian. And for the first time in his life, he had killed something. And he has the wonderful line to the Cardassian officer that he was short to earlier in the episode, where he says, "It's not you I hate, Cardassian. It's what I hate what I became because of you."
War. What is it good for?
Yeah. And I love the song that he has, that that he sings with his former captain Ben Maxwell, to remind him of what strangely enough during the war was the good old days for them. And for those who aren't familiar with the song, it's just, the minstrel boy to the war has gone, in the ranks of death you will find him. His father's sword he hath girded on, with his wild harp slung behind him. And this one sticks with me, partially because it's a really emotional scene in the episode where he sings it and Maxwell joins in, and it's just like, oh, it's so sad. But this, decades ago, when Deep Space Nine was first run, they used this song periodically, just snippets of it, not quite as O'Brien's theme, but periodically in the score when O'Brien's doing something. I was working at Atlantic City Boardwalk Convention Hall, and I forget what show was in, but there was like some Celtic marching band, with the drums and the bagpipes and the kilts.
Mhm.
And while I'm stopping to have lunch, I'm reading one of the Deep Space Nine novels, and it's one, I forget the name, but Odo and Quark get thrust into 3 days into the future by some weird Gamma Quadrant artifact. And while they're in transit to the future, aliens from the Gamma Quadrant show up looking for it, invade the station, and kill everybody because it's not there and they want it back. And in the bad future that has to be prevented by Quark and Odo going back to give them the thing, everybody's dead, and like O'Brien has to set the station's reactor on overload and flood the station with radiation to kill all the invaders, and in the process sacrifices himself to do so. And as I am reading the sentence that says, and O'Brien dies, the band on the other side of the break room wall starts up playing, the minstrel boy to the war has gone, in the ranks of death you will find him. And I'm like, synchronicity. It's not just an album by the Police.
Yeah.
That's crazy, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, I love O'Brien. Poor O'Brien. It does not get better.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I love O'Brien. Another little moment here in there where O'Brien is at the board meeting, where he's talking about how, where they're asking about, well, what can you tell us about Captain Maxwell? What kind of man is he? What would he do this? And the Cardassian, captain is basically saying, well, it's obvious. If his family was killed in the war, then he wants revenge. And I love how O'Brien is just like, hey, I know Picard's my captain now, but you want to talk bad about my old captain, prepare to catch these hands, Which also reminds me, and again, in terms of setting things up for Deep Space Nine, the Cardassian captain here is played by Mark Alamo. Even though he's not Gul Dukat, he's very similar to it. He's not as just gleefully malevolent, but he's a shady guy. He's a shady SOB.
Yeah.
And one of the things that fascinates me about this, which again is setting up things for Cardassians again until the end of the series, until like the end of Voyager almost. I really want to know, because Picard says the war end. We've only just established a treaty a year ago that ended the war. So that means for the first seasons of Next Generation, the Federation and the Cardassians were at war, and you'd barely notice.
Yeah. No one knew.
And I want to know. There's just something about the Cardassians, and when they're involved, and that treaty, it just means the Federation is going to do some morally questionable stuff. And they are going to let a lot of stuff that the Cardassians do slide in the name of not starting that war back up.
Yeah.
And I really have to wonder, for a war that we saw no outward signs of for 2 years, what the heck happened that was so bad that the Federation is willing to let pretty much anything happen as long as the war doesn't start back up? I mean, they're diving back into conflict with the Klingons in Deep Space Nine a lot more readily, which will cause a lot more damage than I would imagine the Cardassians could ever hope to cause.
Yeah, I've been wondering that too. I mean, obviously, because like they basically screw over all their citizens that lived in what is now the demilitarized zone, which
Yeah.
causes basically another enemy front for them
Yeah.
with the Maquis,
Mhm.
and just no end of diplomatic problems. It's well,
Yeah.
that's it. I know they touch on it a little bit in TNG, but it's really one of the main plot points or ongoing stories rather in Deep Space Nine.
It's like, anytime Admiral Nechayev shows up, that she's just great. Federation Council has made what Nick Fury would call an incredibly stupid decision, but she's
Yeah.
here to tell Picard, look, I know we hired you for your morals and your principles, and just screw all of that and just do what you're told right now.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, anyway, so that's a fun episode.
Yeah.
It
And we. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
no.
We saw the actor who played Gul Dukat, right?
Yeah,
Mark,
Marcolimo, yeah.
Yeah.
He
I'm
was
a
in
big fan.
he was in the neutral zone. He was already at the end of season 1, and he was one of the Romulans.
mhm.
Um,
And he was in Lonely Among Us as either one of the Antikin wolf-faced guys or one of the Seeley cobra-faced guys, but even he won't admit which one he was.
Yeah.
'Cause-
and he's also a human in the one episode where they meet Mark Twain. I can't remember what it's called. Times Arrow, I
Times
think.
Arrow. He's a
Yeah.
riverboat gambler.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize he was that
Yeah.
current. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
a
yeah.
fan.
When we've mentioned a couple of their
Without makeup, I think he has a mustache.
Yeah, we mentioned a couple of their mentioned Matt Skronchik. When they get good alien actors, they reuse them all the time.
Hmm.
I usually don't know. It took me till the end of Deep Space Nine, my first watch, to realize that Jeffrey Combs was both Brunt and Wayoon, because he looks and acts so different as both of them, and because of the teeth and stuff. When he's Brunt, he doesn't really sound like himself.
Hmm.
And also going back to the defector James Sloyan, who plays Admiral Jarok, he's a Klingon in a 7th season episode. He's a Bajoran on DS9, Odo's dad, for lack of a better term, in 2 episodes, and he's like in Voyager's 2 Aliens of the Week, and he's got that very distinctive voice, but you never see him as a human.
I mean, they sometimes reuse humans as humans because Sisko's dad is in one of the movies. I think he's in movie 6.
Yeah.
As one of the humans that was like in on the conspiracy.
Pardon.
Yeah. Anyway, now that we've kind of gone off a little bit of a tangent there, but hopefully one that was interesting. Ellie, why don't you bring us up to your next episode, Clues?
Oh, yes. Okay, so personally, Clues is probably my favorite episode. It's not like super action-packed. It's not like, tugging at your heartstrings. But I'm a big fan of Data, which I know, Scott, you are kind of over the whole I want to be a real boy shtick.
Yeah. I don't
but
I don't dislike Data. I just don't like him as much as the writers do.
Yeah, I can understand that. So this episode was really cool because I really like any kind of writing that like messes with your mind or has like a big twist. So they go through a wormhole and then you see them passed out, and then Data is the only one who wasn't affected because he's an android, and basically just tells them like, yeah, you guys were out for 30 seconds, no big deal. And then Beverly, the doctor, was growing, what was it, like scarlet moss, and then she notices that it had been growing, the amount that it grew was 24 hours, and there's no way it could have grown that much in 30 seconds. So the whole episode, there's like a bunch of clues that like they actually were out for 24 hours and not 30 seconds, as Data said. So then they kind of figure out that Data was like keeping a secret. And it's so interesting because Data, is just always so honest, follows orders, and you come to find that he was actually trying to protect them from, or prevent them from kind of following the same exact steps to discovering this like entity. What was it? It was like
just a very xenophobic race that just wanted to be isolated and not be bothered by the rest of the universe.
Yeah, and they threatened to take over the ship and the people, right? And
Yeah.
basically annihilate them. Yeah.
You came back. We got to kill you now.
Yeah. I told you, now I gotta kill you.
Yeah.
And I just thought that the acting in that episode was really good because even like there was like a scene where Picard was like oh, escort Data to, I don't know, like sick bay or something, and he was like, I know the way. So I don't know.
Yeah,
D- did any of you guys enjoy that episode too?
It's a good mystery plot. Like, yeah, I like
Yeah.
that you as an audience member just as in the dark as the characters. So
Mhm.
you're kind of there to piece it along alongside them.
Yeah.
Pardon. And again, now that you mentioned, I'm surprised I didn't pick any Data episodes for my list because I do like Data. I'd have to say, like, my favorite next gen characters are like Data and Worf, which kind of ties back to like, one of my favorite original series characters was Spock, and on DS9, my favorite, Odo is probably just my favorite Star Trek character, flat out, period. Because there's just something about not quite, I guess, well, yeah, I guess the outsider character, the character who kind of looks at everyday humanity and just says, I don't get you guys, is just something, yeah, I empathize with a lot.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's one of the traditions. You kind of always need the outsider on a Star Trek show. This is just it's also like nice writing device because like you can comment on humanity, but like still have it be a character, so it's not
Yeah.
as obvious. But I always said like it's amazing that because they're the two first ones, like with Spock and Data, that they aren't as boring as they probably could have been. Like I think like you go down the road of like a Tuvix, where it's just like I'm emotionless and not that fun. Or not Tuvix, like Tuvok. Sorry, Tuvix is when they're mixed together.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing that they're as interesting and well-rounded as they are. It's just how many stories can we keep doing where like Data needs to prove his humanity? It's just like, all right, I got it.
And one of the things I've always said about Voyager is like, I'm not saying it's a bad show, but I am saying you have some systemic problems when consistently the most emotionally affecting performances come from the Borg, the hologram, and the Vulcan when he's allowed to do things.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll say it. I say Voyager's a bad show. I don't like Voyager at all.
Like I said, I've been, there's since I moved up here to Ocean County, there's a station that runs all 5 of the original series to Enterprise 6 nights a week, 8 p.m. onwards. So I'm usually awake for Voyager and Enterprise, and I'm like, okay, now that I'm actually looking at them for what they are and not what I wanted them to be 20 years ago, it's like they're not as bad as I remember.
I mean, I'll say this: Enterprise is not is far from a perfect show. I
Yeah.
think it's got some big problems, but I do think its reputation
Mhm.
is much worse than it deserves.
It got a lot better seasons 3 and 4, but unfortunately, no one was still paying attention to that.
Yeah, it was getting real good, and then because of that, they canceled it.
Yeah.
Which it happens.
Yeah.
The original series was like going to be canceled every like episode. So,
Yeah.
anyway, not getting too far off topic, but Clues is a good one. It's one of the better mystery episodes, I think. There's kind of
Yeah.
like different like genres of TNG episode.
Yeah, and
But-
even at the beginning, I think there was like the cast, or not the cast, the
Crew.
the crew, thank you. They were taking like a break, and then Guinan for the first time was like in like one of Picard's holodeck, where he's like a detective, like one of his stories, and then they didn't really get to go into it, but it would have been nice to see more of that, I think. But at any rate,
Another fun quirk of Picard that, yes, for all of his great Shakespearean ability, just Patrick Stewart Picard himself just loves some trashy pulp detective novels from the 40s.
yeah.
I also love some good schlock, so I don't mind him. I don't, that's very endearing. But yeah, so I think we're gonna move on to the next episode, which is one of mine. It's not one of the reasons I wanted to move on to it, but I'm looking at the clock and we still have some episodes to get through.
Yeah.
My next episode, season 5, episode 2, 1991, is Darmok.
Mhm.
So this is the episode where the aliens essentially speak in memes, and it's up to everyone to kind of decipher how it works. how to communicate them. So if you look at it and like thinking about it more literal level, like their language doesn't make any sense. How would the universal translator even work in a way that we could figure it out? But it's just, the episode's really about communication and learning to like basically in general, learning to communicate. Picard and the alien or captain are stuck on the planet, and they have to learn to communicate with each other because there's a monster attacking them. Meanwhile, their ships up in orbit have to learn to communicate with each other because otherwise it's like a war crime, and they're trying to avoid that, escalating it into a bigger conflict than it needs to be. But then the best part of the episode is like, all right, you kind of figure it out along with Picard down on the planet, and he's able to figure out how to communicate with these people. And then he just comes, when he finally comes, they finally rescue him, they get him back up on the ship. He just kind of like walks in, he kind of not even walks, he like swaggers onto the bridge, talks down the whole situation, and just kind of like walks back off set, like, walks back off frame. And it's like the most badass movement of like Picard has. And like, it's not a big crazy action thing. He used his brain and figured it out and communicated. And I find that more interesting than let's shoot 1,000 lasers at each other. And it feels so, you feel triumphant because you kind of went along for the ride for it. I don't know. It's just a really fun episode, and it really stuck out to me. And I think it's the first time I noticed Picard's cool jacket that I really, really want.
Yes.
I think that's the first episode he wears it.
Yeah, I think it is too, because I remember being like, oh, that jacket's neat. I want it. But that's, I know.
Again, I think it was another request from Patrick Stewart, where it's like, I want a uniform that's much like William Shatner in the original series. It's like, can I get a uniform another color than red, yellow, or blue? And so they gave him like that apple green one.
Yeah. Oh man, and I mean, I know they needed to change the uniforms because the original ones were like horrible. Just to live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's Darmok. I don't have much more to say about that. Ironically, it's just a really fun episode, and I don't know. It's just one that always stuck out to me. So basically, with the episodes I picked, it's mostly like going back and just remembering like what really stood out to me / what I kind of go back and watch on rewatches for TNG, because TNG's serialized nature keeps me from like, I don't want to watch every episode because I'm like, well, this episode's not as great because there's a really good one coming up, so I'll just skip ahead. So these, so episodes I skip, I kind of don't even factor into like thinking about this stuff. And like, I don't really rewatch Measure of a Man, a lot of the like really classic episodes over and over again. I don't know. I like I said, I like some schlockier stuff, which is a good segue into my next episode, which might be my favorite TNG episode. Also, just a few episodes later, Disaster, where it's essentially the Poseidon adventure in space. The Enterprise is, cruise chugging along like normal, and then a disaster hits and they lose power. So there's no communications. No one's able to like move around the ship. So it's about like there's like no real A story. There's like basically four stories, and with different groupings for different characters in really interesting ways, and how they have to solve whatever their current conundrum is. So
I loved it.
Yeah. So for example, on the bridge, it's Ensign Ro, Miles O'Brien, and Deanna Troi. And Troi is actually the the highest ranking officer there. So she has to take command of the Enterprise. And meanwhile, a guy like Ro and O'Brien are kind of like the angel and the devil on her shoulder. Ro's like, we got to separate the saucer and get out of here because I think the warp core is going to explode or something.
You have no way to know that there's anybody still alive down
Yeah, they
there.
have no way to know anyone's still alive. There's like,
which is like, again, another point of this. It's like, what happened to the other 1,000 people on board the ship? Are
Yeah, right.
their quarters, unable to open the locks without power.
I mean, I'm guessing not everyone wants to crawl around the Jeffrey tubes and stuff.
Well, there was a baby being born.
Well, that in 10-4, Worf has to deliver Keiko O'Brien's baby,
You're right on.
which is great. And I love that they reference it in Deep Space Nine when they mentioned one of the other characters is having a baby and Worf just leaves.
Yes.
He's like, oh God, no, and like gets out of there.
Actually, I think it's
Keiko's second baby, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
As I know they've made references, like there's one person who's a plant, and they're like, oh, they're budding again. Like, I love Deep Space Nine, but
Me too.
Chief O'Brien and I are going to hold a baby shower for him. O'Brien's making him a pod hatchery.
yeah, I know they mentioned that, like, oh, Worf's my friend, he delivered the baby. He's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But no, it's a fun thing because again, the characters are kind of sectioned off in interesting pairings. Like Picard's stuck in a turbo lift with a bunch of kids, and like he hates kids, and he kind of needs to overcome that. He needs to, like,
Die.
yeah, they need,
Right.
he needs to calm them down, and they need to get out of this situation because they are going to die.
Yeah.
The locks are failing, and that turbo lift's going to drop.
Yeah.
And then the only people that are really solving anything are Riker and Data's head into Jeffrey tubes, crawling around the ship trying to get it to work again. I don't know. It's just a lot of fun. And it's like I said, I think the character pairings go a really long way with this to make it really interesting. Because again, this is the first time like I really liked Troy because she's like the first time she's not really passive.
Yeah.
And then this from here, she's like, I'm going to wear a normal uniform. I'm going to start taking like my role in Starfleet seriously. Like she actually tries for different ranks and stuff. I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, if you think of like, I just think in terms of like, the futuristic technology of the Enterprise, and like, I feel like the problem that happened in this episode would like, it's such a realistic problem. Like, like even like when you're working, like I worked at a hospital and like the power would go out and we'd have to like immediately like arm ourselves at the doors and like I don't know, figure out things. So I losing contact with the entire ship, not knowing who's alive or dead, I don't know, it was just like a really intense and fun story.
Excuse you guys 1 sec. I have to deal with this dog.
Okay.
Well, I guess while you're doing that, I just wanted to mention there was one episode I was thinking about doing, but I said, no, I got 5. I can just mention this as a side note. What Scott was saying about you start to see Troy for the first time, like, no, I'm a serious command officer here, and I deserve to be respected. There was one late season, I think it's 6 season, called Face of the Enemy, where she wakes up in just in a dark room, looks in the mirror and realizes, oh crap, I'm a Romulan.
Yeah,
and
it's a great episode.
Yeah, and just what you were saying, Scott, about how Troy's starting to get seriously, and like, I am a command officer who deserves respect. I am not just a cheerleader in a low cut dress. What I love about Face of the Enemy is like her cover is that she's a member of the Tal Shiar, which is like the Romulan Gestapo or KGB, and the way she's got to go deep into this and just be meaner than we have ever seen Troy be, and maybe meaner than I've ever seen Marina Sirtis be, just to sell her cover to the point where she's even barking at her handler in Spock's resistance movement, that just like who brought her on here to do this job, is like, no, you're going to do what I say if you want this to go down. And just she's threatening people's families, and it's like, wow, Troy's getting dark. And it's weird how much she seems to kind of like it a little.
Yeah.
That's disturbingly comfortable, ordering executions.
That was a great episode because she had to be sure of herself. There was no room for hesitation or mistakes there.
Yeah. I came back just in time to cough.
It's okay. I've been doing it.
No, it's all right.
I think all 3 of us have been coughing, actually.
Well, we are in the middle of a global pandemic.
I can still smell, so
it's still good.
Yeah. Mucus, which is like incredible sensitivity.
But yeah, Mike, why don't you take us on to the next episode here, our first of season 6.
Hang on a second here. Lubricate the throat a bit. Now we're on to Relics, which this is the one where they find Scotty. They find a ship that's been crashed on the surface of a Dyson sphere, which is this crazy idea of where, like, if a sufficiently advanced civilization can planet around the star, they'll have enough raw materials to build a hollow shell encasing it so they can just take all of the solar energy it's radiating in every direction, and they will never run out of power then. And they find the ship crash there. It's been there for 75 years, and there's something in the transporter that's just been going through the diagnostic loop for 75 years, and it's Scotty. And this is nice. See, this one hits different now when I watched it today, in preparation for this. At the time, I'm in late high school, early college. It's like, yeah, Scotty's back, and all the nostalgia of him coming. But I'm going to be 50 next September, and that whole sequence where Scotty's going on to the holodeck recreation of the old original series bridge, and just sad that that's gone and it's not coming back. It's sort of like that whole realization that, yeah, I got more days behind me than I do ahead of me. It's like, yeah, that hits different now.
Mhm.
It's just so much more emotionally affecting.
Mhm.
When you see him, it's like, yeah, because we the fans are excited to have Scotty back, but literally everybody else on the Enterprise is like, oh God, gee, Grandpa, yeah, great story. We're trying to work here. Can you just get out from underfoot for 1 second?
Yeah, they get over his like, wow, it's a legendary Starfleet officer pretty
Yeah,
quick when he tries to help, like in engineering.
yeah.
Uh
Putting that.
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, because it's even if he wasn't stuck in a essentially like a horrific time loop
Yeah,
for decades, he would have been so out of date in his depth anyway.
yeah.
But like, it is really sad. And
Hmm.
yeah, and like, I don't know, this episode was one of the ones that was going to be on my list too. Again, I love Montgomery Scott. He's one of my favorite, between him and Bones, they're my favorite characters from the original series. And it was really nice to kind of see him come back. And it was cool to see a Dyson sphere realized.
Yeah.
Um, just because that's such an old school sci-fi concept, and it's just like, oh, okay. We finally get to see what one might be like potentially.
I read that Freeman Dyson himself actually watched this episode and kind of like, wow, you guys are taking this idea I had far more seriously than I
Yeah.
am.
Oh,
But I also love at the at the end of this the bit where, all right, we'll try and find some way to make Scotty useful. So Geordi's going to have him tag along to get the computers on the Janolan, the ship he was on, running again, and just some wonderful bits like, okay, we can get this thing running, and it's like, we just need this piece of technobabble. Geordi's like, you can't do that, and it's like, what gave you that idea? Well, regulation number blah blah blah. Yeah, I wrote that regulation. I know it can take it.
yeah. Oh, just his interactions with Geordi are great because Geordi's really not impressed.
Yeah,
But then my favorite line from it is, you told him, he's talking to Picard, tells him exactly how long it's gonna take him to fix it. It's
yeah,
like, why would you tell him that? Like, tell him the actual time. How are you gonna get a reputation as a miracle worker?
yeah,
If you can't do it in like half the time you say.
yeah,
Just little things like that's fun. I also love when Scotty's on the bridge of the original series. Again, the nostalgia is like, oh wow, it's that. And then like Picard hangs out with him there. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool way to get him like on the original set. Because this is when TNG was kind of in its last couple of years, it had been on, it's a season 6 of 7.
Mhm.
So it's kind of neat to see more old school, like more classic Trek stuff kind of get involved with the next gen crew.
For the first 3 years or so, there was a distinct uh, orders from the suits at the top, where it's like, no, we want the show to stand on its own. We don't want to keep referencing the old series every week in and week out.
And that's fine. I think that's good. I think it helped this show to have its own sense of identity, which is why it's neat to see them clash together.
And one of the things I'd read is when they get Scotty out of the transporter buffer, that they went to find to the effects. One of the guys had connections at the effects house from the 60s, where they had the film of the original 1960s transporter sparkly effect that they dug out of storage to get the actual original tapes to use for this episode.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That and the original sound effect too.
yeah, and like it's cool he's in old, we got old uniforms and stuff. I know obviously James Doohan was a little bit longer in the tooth in real life at the time, so it's not like prime Scotty, but we were seeing him in the movies and stuff, so this is still like not unfamiliar Scotty.
And another one of those little callbacks, like you were saying, I love is when Scotty goes to the
Oh
tenfold,
yeah,
you know,
with Data, and they're doing the "It Is Green" thing.
yes, which is a reference back to the 60s where they're trying to, by any other name, where the Enterprise has been hijacked by powerful aliens who are just, wearing human bodies for the first time. So they figured, well, the best way to, they're not used to being human. We know what the weaknesses of a human being are. We'll use that against him.
He's
And
gonna get the one drunk.
Scotty,
Yeah,
is just trying to drink one of them under the table, and they're just gone through every bit of alcohol in his quarters until they're finally, it's like, anything else? Well, is this? What is it?
it's
It's
green.
green.
Yeah,
It's green.
yeah. Yeah, that's fun, little fun things like that. I love when they do things like that. Just in general, not necessarily in this episode, but I don't know. Scotty's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But he's much more lighthearted than most of the cast
Yeah.
in TNG, so it's fun to see them play off each other. But yeah, Relics is a good one. Like I said, it was one of my alternates, but then Mike's like, I want to do Relics. I was like, that's fine. I'll pick something else. I'm also, I want to be a nice host, and you guys get to pick what you want to pick.
And just one of my favorite bits from Relics is where, again, where they're trying to get Scotty's old ship up and running again, and Geordi's like, I don't know how we can do, how that's going to work. And, Scotty all but grabs him by the shoulders and says, I've spent my whole life coming up with crazy ways to do things. I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just Geordi's so by the book, and like Scotty, I mean, he was competent and got the job done, but he was like a, whatever you got on hand kind of guy.
And
Better improviser.
Scotty wrote the book to stop people from trying the crazy stuff he did on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you think about like antimatter reactions, like, oh my god, this is so mind-bogglingly dangerous, the stuff that they do. Well, let's move on to the next episode. We're in our final three here. Elise is one of yours.
Yeah, so my next two, and I guess I have the last one too, are because Defector and The Wounded were taken. So these are like alternatives for me too. So Ship in a Bottle, I thought was so great because of the ending. Again, like kind of like a twist, like Clues. So we start off with Geordi and Data in like the holodeck, doing their own little thing, and then they're noticing like some glitches. I think like he threw like it was like a matchbox at one of the like, I don't know, assimilated characters, and he catches it with his right hand, and they notice that that's a glitch, so they call Reginald Barclay to come check it out. And then that's when we see, I think it was the second time we see Professor James Moriarty, right? Because the first time was in Elementary Dear Data, I think.
Yeah, that was the first time.
The idea, it was, oh, go ahead.
Just a little side note, they were actually supposed to be in the Defector. When they start out on the holodeck doing Shakespeare, they were supposed to be doing Data doing Sherlock Holmes again, but they got a letter from the Arthur Conan Doyle estate that said, Sherlock Holmes isn't public domain. So they could not use, they had to leave the thread they started in Elementary Dear Data with Moriarty waiting to find a way out till this episode, until they could negotiate a contract for the use of the character again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really cool. So basically, yeah, Professor James Moriarty is, what do we call them? Like holodeck holograms? Like,
yeah, holograms.
Yeah, holograms. Basically trying to figure out a way out. And from what we see in the episode, like Reginald, like Barclay, like lets him out, and they're trying to figure out a way to like transport him, even though he's not, like, I don't know. It was just kind of like a mind game, because like you think Beverly Crusher like sees that he is like full on a person, but in the end, like, I don't know, just a big mind game. Do you guys did you guys like this episode too?
It's okay. I'm not wild about the Moriarty character. I know it's like Greg's favorite character, In
Oh, really?
yeah, it it's okay. I mean, it's cool that they went back to him. So since they're like, well, you're a sentient being now, let's just put you in this flash drive, and then another existential nightmare prison. Um, so it's kind of cool. It was a clever way that they were able to like solve their problem with him. Where
It was
he's
just like
kind of living
a
in a
s- like
simulation.
a
Yeah,
holodeck program on top of a holodeck program,
yeah. The holodeck just seems to
and
be
then
way more trouble than it's worth in general.
it definitely is.
Not sure if I love or hate the almost, but not. They don't. Picard doesn't break the fourth wall at the end. He just sort of gently taps it a little bit. To just say, I mean, it's real. Whatever he's going through in the simulator is as real to him as our lives are to us. I mean, who knows? For all we know, all our adventures could be happening in a little box on someone's table.
That's like what Picard said at the end, which I loved. It was so playful, and for someone who literally like travels galaxies into space, like has, I'm sure, the mentality that everything is infinite. So having this like ship in a bottle, which refers to this like, what was it, like a holodeck program, but it was like a bunch stacked on top of each other so that it was infinite.
That they thought they were leaving the holodeck, but they were still in a program of the ship outside the holodeck. That's still the holodeck.
Yes, God.
It's kind of like when you wake up and you wake up from a dream and realize, no, you're still dreaming. This is the dream, and you wake up again.
Right. It was a great ending. And again, the writing was great. I always love mind games. So Star Trek did a really good job with that episode. So yeah.
All right. I'm going to move on to my final episode here. It's called Tapestry. It's probably, well, I mean, it's definitely in my top 5, which is why we're talking about it now. But definitely my favorite Q episode, and it may or may not even be a Q episode because I have a headcanon for this. So essentially, Picard. All right, so established way earlier in the series, Picard has an artificial heart. He lost it in a fight with some Nausicaans, which are like just an evil mercenary race of aliens.
Space orcs, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. But this is, he's having surgery and he's essentially died because of his artificial heart. But Q shows up and gets to kind of do like an "It's a Wonderful Life" kind of thing with him.
Yeah.
Where he gets to show him and let him experience, because Picard's like lamenting, he's like, man, I wasted so much time. I died from this stupid accident when I was a stupid, ignorant punk kid. I was fresh out of the academy. I didn't really know what I was doing. And he gives him a chance to kind of like do over. So he puts Picard back in his body. Essentially, he quantum leaps him into his own self. So like everyone sees him as young Picard, but we just see Picard, current day Patrick Stewart, and he's with his friends and whatever. So he kind of goes down this different road where he did not go through that fight, and he becomes a much less interesting person. He doesn't take risks. He never progressed much in Starfleet. He's far from captain of the Enterprise. And then he realizes, like, no, it really was It's a Wonderful Life. I needed to be that person to grow and become the person I am and wanted to be. So he goes back and does the thing and gets stabbed in the heart and then comes back to life. So I like to think this is a near-death experience. And Q never actually showed up. It's just Picard's way of like seeing his life before his eyes. And because this also doesn't have Q in the episode title.
Yeah.
So it's not Tapestry.
There is logic in what he says.
So I don't know. Maybe it is a real Q episode, even if it isn't, it's still fun. Because Q's just messing with his whole life now.
What does he say? He's like, the universe is better than this, or something like that.
Yeah, Q appears to him in the white robes and the bright lights and says, "Yes, I'm God. Welcome to the afterlife." And Picard says, "I can't imagine the universe is so poorly designed as to be run by you as God."
Oh, it's just the two of them are an old married couple at this point. It's great. Just their bickering and stuff.
Waking up in bed next to him.
Yeah, waking up in bed next to him is great.
That was my favorite.
Yeah. It's like one of those internet reaction gifs now.
Yeah.
So my roommate's been putting up with me watching Star Trek nonstop, and this episode actually was on yesterday. And he came in on the scene where Picard gets stabbed from the back, and he goes, "Oh my God, like, am I coming into like the episode where the main character dies, or is this just like Star Trek? I was like, yeah, this is just Star Trek.
It's just Star Trek. Yeah.
He'll be okay.
There's episodes where the Enterprise is stuck in like an exploding time loop and they die like 40 million times. And they're like, we don't even know how many times we've run through this.
He's
Yeah.
dead. He's only comic book dead.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's kind of like it's It's a Wonderful Life, Picard. I don't know. Again, it's a very strong character one, and I enjoy Q.
I love Q.
So
And I also love in this one the little bit where Picard, who in having aged up to his current age in the what if you had never gotten into that fight timeline, he's just like a low-level blue shirt. It's like he's just a monitor watcher, and it's just so like he wants to, and he's asking Riker, it's like, well, I think I could handle some command level duties. I could do that. And Riker just looks at him, like, I've read your record and I don't see anything in there that makes me believe you'd be capable of that.
It's Riker being the politest person
Yeah.
in television history.
Yeah.
Because he walks up to him like they're old friends and stuff. He's like, "Who is this guy?" Like, think he is.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah, he realizes like, yeah, you. But it's also just good messages. Like, yeah, you make mistakes and stuff growing up, but you make the mistakes so you can learn and grow from them, and you become a better person. Whereas if you just always are like playing it safe, and I don't know, I found it. It's just one of those ones that like stuck with me a lot more than a lot of other Picard episodes. Over the years. And with that, Ellie, why don't you give us our last episode for our last episode for this episode?
So, believe it or not, so I just watched the episode before we got on here. So Lower Decks, another alternative pick. So it was funny because I think early in our conversation, I'm trying to remember what episode it was. I think we were talking about disaster, where like it's like what happened to the rest of the ship, right? So this kind of talks about more minor characters. Like we've seen Nurse what's her name, Ogawa, working with Beverly Crusher for I don't know, I guess a couple episodes, and then
by this point, I think.
I say she was on for a while, right?
Yeah. And then there's I'm so bad with the names. There's the Bajoran woman.
Jaxa.
Yeah, Jaxa.
Jaxa. Yeah.
And
who was in on Wesley's flight team in the academy in the first duty a few seasons back.
Yeah, that was intense. So, and I love that, like, so she started off as security and like wanted to get so like everyone wants to get a promotion. She went, and Worf was the one who wanted her to get a promotion. So that was kind of, I don't know, a sweeter side of Worf, which we see more of in Deep Space Nine. I mean, we see some sweet spots. He did help Miss O'Brien give birth. I don't know. It was just really cool to see like these minor characters, like, because they're all over. We see them on the on the bridge all the time. A lot of this in the earlier seasons they would die a lot. But yeah.
They even call that chair that Data isn't sitting in the death seat.
The death seat.
Yeah. Because someone always dies when they're on the bridge there when Data's not there, because Data has so much plot armor.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically what he's made out of. But yeah, now they have a whole show called Lower Decks, and I'm terrible.
Well, it looks like I saw the preview. It looks like satire.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't, I don't know. I don't like the CBS All Access shows. The very first episode of this whole podcast was me complaining about it. So I don't want to tread too much of the same ground. Just know my opinions haven't changed.
I don't have the CBS app streaming service, so I haven't seen any of it. I mean, I have the first 2 seasons of Discovery, the Short Treks collection, and the first season of Picard on DVD, but I haven't even taken the out of the plastic yet. Probably between Christmas and New Year's. Yeah, I think I'm going to fire those up. But,
well, I'm sure you'll let me know what you think about them when you see them.
Yeah, I would love to hear. I want to watch Picard so bad, but have not had the chance.
I guess the biggest thing that I hear most people complaining about Discovery is about how it doesn't fit into the canon timeline where they say it's supposed to be between, and I'm just like, you know, I'm a comic book guy, so I'm sort of coming at this from the same way that I approach the comics. It's like, people who are upset, oh, the Klingons are so different, they don't look anything like they did before, and they don't act the way they did before. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to sit there and insist that, Wayne Manor and Arkham Asylum and the Gotham City Police headquarters get demolished and rebuilt to radically different architectural plans every few issues when a new artist comes on. You just got to accept that's the way this guy draws it. And just
Now, my biggest problem with Discovery is it's that action blandness, and like it's the characters are really weak. And I just think it's a weak show in general. And then it has all that stuff on top of it. But which bothers me more in that a situation like that, because I don't have like characters I really like to hang my hat on. I'm not really getting like fun adventures. I don't know. The characters need to be there for me to like anything, and they're not. And I don't think they're there in Picard. I don't think they're there in Lower Decks. I don't know. The CBS direction is just not for me. So I don't subscribe to it. I don't keep watching the shows. I'm not that kind of guy. Like, I wrote off the Star Wars movies in the Disney era because I went 3 in a row I didn't like. And I was like, all right, I'm done. This isn't for me. But
I'm willing to give Discovery a shot if for no other reason than Doug Jones is just a delight in anything he does, pretty much.
He's easily the best part of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think setting it that timeline, that time period was a weird idea. I think if they sent it like now, like however many years it's been since, the end of like where we saw Trek.
Well, from what I understand, now with season 3, they're jumped like almost 1,000 years.
Yeah, now they're that anyway. So I think they should just been, I think that opens up way more opportunities for storytelling. As a fan, I'd rather see new things than like, oh, Michael Burnham's the adopted sister of Spock. When we have ratings dip, they're just going to pull Spock out of their pocket. Oh, of course they did. Season 2, here he is.
Oh,
Stuff like that. It's just like, I don't know. The cynic in me is like, I see the producers behind it too much, which if you watch the opening credits, there's like literally like 30 producers. So I don't know. It feels more like a Star Trek by committee than like someone who has a story. Like Stephen Ira Bear, we mentioned earlier, is one of the main shepherds of Deep Space Nine, and that really felt like there was somebody at the helm throughout. Again, not a perfect show, no, none of these shows are, but you can tell that there's someone who's kind of like has someone keeping it on the rails, or like has a story or characters they want to tell.
There was actually, I was reading that at some point when they were I think it might have been like season 3, 4, they asked fans of Next Gen to come up with ideas for episodes, and then they actually did some of them. I forget which ones. Yeah,
I know the original series, people would send in scripts, and like some of those people who sent that stuff in became Star Trek writers.
Oh wow.
On awesome. Like the animated series and some other ones. I don't know anyone's name offhand.
Yeah, there were I think his name was Howard Weinstein, who went on to write a buttload of the Star Trek novels. Submitted a script to the animated series, The Pirates of Orion, I believe it was. And I know...
And the guy who wrote Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, I think, also got it from fan submission. Yeah. I'm terrible with names. I'm not going to remember their names.
And I know, a couple of the ones I've mentioned that I did, like The Defector and Sins of the Father, were written by Ronald D. Moore, who went on to do the Battlestar Galactica reboot. And I know his first script was one he sent in because, well, it's just one that he submitted to them, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's like his first script was just, I'm dating a woman who works at the studio. Can she maybe put the script in front of on the producer's desk so that they can have a look at it? And because I think this was like season 2, The Bonding. That was it. The Bonding. It was season 2, and they're coming in after the writers' strike, where it's like they have next to nothing ready to go. So they took his idea and brought him in, and he ended up being on the writing staff until the end.
Yeah, I always like hearing stories like that. So looking back over the episodes we talked about today, I don't think there's any kind of like clear pattern with like what we think make good episodes or not. I did notice in putting the episodes, my episodes together, I really like seasons 5, 4, and 5. So I guess that's kind of like where the sweet spot of the show was for me. But there's stuff I like in every season,
Yeah.
even season 1. But we want to talk about the ones that we really
Yeah.
enjoyed tonight.
I mean, we probably could have talked about many more.
Oh yeah, we definitely could have. This is definitely one we're going to come back to, and I'll invite you. When we do Star Trek episodes again, I'll invite you guys back. There's a lot of Trek fans we have that I'm looking for excuses to have you on. So we just need to think of what the next podcast episode's going to be. Can't
Anything
think of
Deep
great
Space
friends.
Nine, let me know.
I say we did the spoiler-free Deep Space Nine episode. Maybe we'll do one where we dig into the characters a little bit and stories a little bit more. But we'll put that on the drawing board. I got the episodes for the rest of this month and for January kind of planned out. But after that, the future's up in the air. So we'll see what we can do. If anyone listening has anything specific they want to hear about, let me know. And if it works out, I can put it together.
I do know for the top 5 Deep Space Nine episodes, I'm calling dibs on Heart of Stone right now.
Oh, that's fine. That's a good one. So I can't. It's so hard because it's more like storylines I really like, and it's hard to pick out one.
I know.
But that's an apples and oranges situation because the show's serialized versus this one, which is episodic. So it's easier to kind of pick out episodes you like a little bit more. They're not as entwined, as it were. Although we did talk about some ones that do that. But I think that's going to do us for this episode. It's another 2-hour one. It'll be a little bit less once I edit out some of the pauses and stuff. But
yeah, sorry about the trouble.
No, it's all good. I'm sorry about my dog needing my attention constantly.
Also, when Mike was talking and that like commercial went up, it was like I was looking up a quote and it just like how they just pop up really intrusively. Sorry about that, man.
It happens.
I usually find when your equipment is misbehaving, I just channel Davros from Doctor Who. It's like, you will obey me! It rarely helps, but
does it work?
No, but I feel better.
Yeah. I try to do the Fonz and just hit it and go, hey, because I'm such a cool guy. But I have a Star Trek podcast, so that shows how cool I actually am, which is super cool.
You are awesome.
Yeah. But that was nice talking to you guys again. The reason I do the show is we're all stuck at home, and this is a safe way to see people and chat about things we're interested in, and hopefully other people like them. And if not, whatever, I'll do this until it's boring for me. So we're gonna wrap this up so I can get this edited and scheduled up for Friday. But you guys final thoughts on TNG?
Watch it. Everyone should watch it.
It definitely, like I said, and I'm now, after having spent 2 hours talking about it, I finally have the words I should have had at the beginning. Where I said, yes, classic Trek was always there, and the movies were pretty good, but Next Generation reinvented it to make it a thing where it's like, this isn't just something, okay, I'll look at it if it's on, where it's like, no, you actively want to follow.
Yeah, I usually, when people ask me like, oh, Star Trek is now, it's so big, there's so many shows, like people are like, where to start? I'm always like, start season 2 of Next Generation. It's like the old show, I love it, but like you need to be like kind of in the mood for like a 60s style show.
Yeah.
Because it's got very old school sensibilities. This one's modern enough that I think anyone can kind of get into it, but still like that classic Trek, boldly going where no man's gone before, like episodic adventures.
It is questionable how much is to be gained from sticking around for some first season episodes like Code of Honor or Tasha Yar on the Planet of Racist Stereotypes.
Yeah, there's some bad episodes in season 1. I honestly recommend skipping them. you'll
Yeah.
pick up on what you need to know, which is just who Chastriar is, just from characters later on.
We are an entire planet of black actors in turbans and genie pants, and we just drop our jaws at the first sight of a blonde white woman.
Yeah, there's some bad stuff. There's some real racist stuff in the original series.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend there's not.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good note to end this on.
Sorry.
Optimistic future. We still haven't conquered racism.
Yes.
But
No,
that's
the future will conquer racism. Just
Yeah.
Paramount Studios circa 1987.
Yeah, it still has to deal with it.
Oh,
If our future's gonna be anything like Star Trek, we'll be all right.
Yeah. Oh my God, we should be so lucky
hmm.
Right?
to even get to Enterprise.
Hey, it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
So
Things I was looking at, because I was going to talk about another episode with Harry, if we ever get back to hailing frequencies.
Yeah, I know he's been just so busy
know.
in real life.
But it's like there's somebody it's an episode about terrorism and the high ground, and Dr. Crusher is basically saying, look, I don't, he's talking, he pulls out a lot of the terrorist character pulls out a lot of boilerplate nonsense that it's like anybody who's remotely thinking can see through. Well, that's just self-serving nonsense. But the trying to justify why the Federation is behaving the way it does, Dr. Crusher doesn't really have an answer, and I'm realizing that's because the Federation itself was not designed with an answer as to how to get to that. It's like, yeah, they don't have terrorism because they don't have any of the root causes of terrorism, like poverty and religious strife, because it was written to not have those from the start. And there's never really been a good explanation of how we get from where we are now with all of these problems to this idealized future where nobody even thinks about the kind of problems that would cause issues like hunger and famine and terrorism. When again, it was basically the closest to an explanation we've ever gotten is during Enterprise, which is supposed to be about fleshing out how that happens, when its base seems to pretty much be the Vulcans were snotty and condescending to us for 50 years, so we became better people out of spite to prove them wrong.
I mean, whatever gets you there.
Yeah.
Now that's one of the things I was really excited about with Enterprise. They started really getting into that, and they're like, "Oops, over."
Yeah.
Like that's that's unexplored territory with Star Trek. I want some new stuff. I think that was my biggest problem with Voyager. It was just like, oh, this is just the worst version of the Next Generation. I don't need this. And then like I didn't even, and then again, I don't really like the Borg, and then that just becomes what that's all about. And I'm like, all right, I don't care. But again, we're leaving it on a positive note. Next Generation's really good, even though there's tons of episodes we could have talked about that we did not. So this is more like a kind of a sampling, like a sampler platter of the Next Generation. If any of these sounded remotely interesting, one of the strengths of the show is you can kind of just go on Netflix and just grab that episode and then, check it out for yourself. And then if you like what you see, keep going.
Oh my God, because once you get to Deep Space Nine, you really fall in love.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Deep Space Nine, I think it's better if you have watched TNG and you kind of know the universe a little bit more.
Yeah.
It rewards that because it's not going to take your that's not going to help you explain any of the stuff that they do in TNG. But yeah, so I guess we'll sign out. I think our topic next week, we're going to be talking about Christmas specials, and then I have a Christmas special for you guys after that. I'm going to be recording all of that this coming weekend. Looking forward to doing that. So until next time, stay safe out there.